To borrow the lyrics from a song of my youth, every new beginning is some other beginning's end. After years with the SK Modified as the vehicle of choice for Bootleg's premier event each weekend, we find ourselves turning over a new leaf. Little else has changed, but the face of this storied short track league finds itself closing up the fenders and drastically increasing the horsepower. Tonight, we get introduced to the NASCAR K&N Impala as we get ready to watch round one of the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series, presented by the Crew Shop. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Adam Young. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. While Stafford Motor Speedway has traditionally been considered the home of the SK Modified, it's not the only car that races here. So kicking things off here with our new toy is not any sort of sacrilege. Still, let's get in for a closer look at one of the oldest racetracks in America.
Welcome to Stafford. This half-mile oval was built in 1870 for a different type of horsepower, horse racing, and then automobile racing took over after that. This place is not as flashy or fancy as the half miles that the Cup cars go to today, but this busy oval can still put on a fantastic show full of action for the fans and intense competition for the drivers. Uniquely banked, it poses a challenge for all comers. Turns 1 and 2 are banked at 9 degrees, where turns 3 and 4 are banked a little less at 7 degrees. The apron here at Stafford is known for being very wide but flat. Only the bravest of drivers with the utmost grip can make passes down there. Short tracks equal close racing and usually leads to shorter tempers. Keeping calm at Stafford rewards the drivers. It's like the old racing expression, to finish first, you must first finish. Corner exit tends to be the most challenging place on the track, where the fast lane sweeps right out of the corners towards that wall that awaits you. Stafford is an old, worn-out surface, so managing the tires is also key to finding victory lane here. All in all, Stafford poses a fun challenge to drivers, and it's always sure to put on a great show. So settle in, buckle up, it's bound to be a great race.
You see some of the beautiful angles of this old short track, but let's get used to the details before we go over any more angles. Adam, what's it going to be like with this K&N car at this track?
Loose. And that's going to be an understatement, especially on exit here today. It's definitely one of those old-style short tracks where you're going to have to get this thing pointed straight before you really hammer down on the throttle. And I think a lot of these guys, though, they'll get used to that. And also, because it's an older oval, it's not completely symmetrical either, and that's going to make things interesting. Your entry into turn 1 is going to be a little bit different than your entry into turn 3, which is always interesting. But, of course, half mile in length, banking in the corners is somewhat variable, about 7.5 to 9 degrees. And of course, this place has been open for a long time. Opened as a horse racing track, but today, different kind of horsepower out there.
Absolutely. And, well, we have changed the car, but we haven't changed the sponsor. We're still sponsored by the Crew Shop. The Crew Shop has been in operation since 1986. They are a team of highly experienced travel agents that have a huge passion for travel. They specialize in cruises, all-inclusive resorts, escorted tours, Disney and family travel, groups, honeymoons, and weddings. They would love the opportunity to help you plan your next vacation. Give them a call today at 260-755-6125, or you can visit their website at thecrewshopfw.com. The Crew Shop is dedicated to fulfilling their clients' dreams one destination at a time. So we wrapped up last season with the SK Modified, so let's see how that last championship with that car, for now at least, went. And, well, it's fitting. J.R. Checkered, one of the most dominant forces in that car, wound up with it just barely over Josh Banks. It was 2 points between them in the end. James Lowe did get third in points, and Kenny Kibbe and Todd Liston were pretty distant compared to our top drivers. Of course, we have some race details to go over, and Adam, why don't we familiarize our audience with how this thing will go down?
Yeah, as we mentioned, of course, it's going to be a 100-lap race here for today. They started a little bit late because of the holidays, so it's going to be an 11-race season. We're starting round 1 here for today in the new Grand National Series with the K&N car. They do allow one fast repair here, but not allowed to take tires. So that always makes things interesting, especially if you do got to come in, and especially got to be careful not to burn them up. This car is on the new tire model, so things could be slippery and slidey, especially at the start of this thing. So got to take care of them. Now, after today, the grid will invert for the top 8 of the previous race. But of course, we haven't had a race yet, Joe, so we're going to have a traditional qualifying coming up here in just a couple minutes.
This is traditional for other series, but really something of a novelty here for this league. So, honestly, essentially, you get to watch something that you don't always get to see in this series, which is a qualifying round here in the Bootleg Racing League. J.R. Checkered out there currently holds the top spot in the warm-up, so that bodes well for him in the qualifying. But he's being very closely chased in the warm-up times by James Lowe. There's only 8 1,000ths between them here, Adam. And I'm kind of curious to see how it'll be between these cars because, yes, the SK Modified was difficult to drive, but as I mentioned, there's a lot more horsepower in this machine. So I wonder if that will cause bigger gaps between the drivers.
You know, that's going to be the interesting thing, and that's going to be one of the things we're going to have to see what plays out. But looking at the times on the practice board, as long as these guys can stay clean, it's going to be close and competitive. You know, J.R. Checkered isn't going to be able to run away with some of the races that I've seen him run away with in the past. So that's going to be one of the fun parts to watch this afternoon. And I really think, too, the extra horsepower, you know, yeah, the SK Modified, it was a handful, but as you can see on your screen right there, so is this. This is not going to be an easy cakewalk for these guys.
Yeah, it certainly should be kind of tricky for them, especially getting off the corners. We keep talking about how tough it is on this track, trying to get the car pointed and get the power down with how little banking. And you talked about the asymmetrical nature. Wonder if that'll catch anybody out as if they get too complacent and aren't paying attention. What do you think the passing is going to be like out here knowing that? Are those mistakes coming off the corner going to open up the door, or is it still going to be pretty difficult with how flat it is?
It's still going to be difficult with how flat it is. I think you're still going to see a lot of single file in the corners. You don't want to get hung out to dry. The inside line is still preferred. But the game changed when they went to the new tire model on these cars, and the fact that you have to warm these tires up. If you're going to make moves, it's going to be the guys that are able to manage warming up those tires very early on and be able to race on those tires being warmed up. That's going to be the time to try to get side by side with somebody, maybe try to make a move on the high side with somebody that's struggling a little bit with getting those tires warmed up. So that's going to be one place to try to make a move right at the beginning of starts and restarts. The other thing is, too, is you might see a little bit of the chrome horn come into use today. Would not be surprised, in fact, to see that maybe later on.
You can see drivers still doing what they can to get some practice in out there. The track temperature isn't too bad. It's also not that cold. It's kind of somewhere in between. We're at the sort of Goldilocks realm, I guess you could say, at 91 degrees Fahrenheit on the surface. We do have a little bit of wind, but I'm not sure that that'll really affect things too greatly. The sun, of course, is going down, so this temperature should continue to decrease as things go on. And it looks like Brian Dean just set the fastest lap of the warm-up, and almost half a tenth quicker than J.R. Checkered. So Brian Dean clearly enjoys this car. That's kind of one thing that I'm looking forward to, if I'm honest here, Adam, is the fact that this shakeup could see us see some new faces up at the front. And you know what? I just saw that we have Mike Holloway coming in to join us here before the race gets going. So why don't we get his thoughts on how this is going to shake out with this new car, starting at a track they're all familiar with. Mike, welcome up here to the booth. It's the first time that we're going to be racing this K&N car here in the series in Anger. How are you feeling about that?
Not so sure yet. I'll let you know here in about 100 laps. It should be all right, though. I mean, it's a new car. The track's really hot. I think we're going to probably see a few issues, but I think once we kind of get it ironed out, everybody gets settled in, it'll go all right.
Now, we've talked a little bit about how the both sides of the track, turns 1 and 2 and turns 3 and 4, have slightly different banking out here. And as I said, you guys have raced that plenty of times, but how does that affect the racing for you? Does it mean that it's kind of only passing on is possible on one side of the track, or is it doable on either side? What have you experienced so far?
It's doable on both ends, 1 and 2, then 3 and 4. You both ends do offer the opportunity for passing. You just have to keep in mind you have to approach each end differently, though. You know, the way you make passes in 1 and 2 are not going to be the same way you make them in 3 and 4.
That makes sense to me. But also, the other new thing is that, well, you've got the new tire model on this car. Have you noticed that getting it going on restarts or simply getting it going out of the pits is tricky? Or are the tires pretty slippery when cold?
They are. I mean, you definitely got to be aware of it. And that first few laps seems like here it seems to be about 10 laps. After about 10 laps, they really come in, and once they do, you're hooking up, and it runs great. And then you got it for about 10 or 20 laps, and then they're going to start falling away from you. So you just have to be aware of that. But it's drivable on restarts. You just got to baby it a little bit.
Also noticed that you've done some photography with NASCAR out there. Have you had some fun with all the new toys in the last year or two that iRacing has put out with, screen captures on here? All kinds of really pretty things that you can do out there.
I have some, but to be honest, I haven't really tinkered with it a lot. But from what little I've tinkered with it, man, they got some pretty cool stuff on there. I got to give them that.
Yeah, some great stuff. Well, best of luck, Mike, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you post-race as well.
All right, thanks, Joe.
Mike Holloway, who currently is sitting in the 8th position in the warm-up. But again, the warm-up doesn't mean a whole lot here, Adam. It's the qualifying that will really decide a lot of things in this race.
Yeah, and we're only a couple minutes away from that. And that's going to be the interesting thing to see just how these guys are able to get hooked up on those cold tires to start off with and try to lay down that good lap. But I'm really anxious to see how this one's going to turn out, Joe. This might be the most interesting bootleg race. I'm not saying it hasn't been interesting, but the most interesting one we've seen in quite some time, just because of all the new elements that we're going to have.
Yep, I love a fresh start, and I love throwing some curved balls at the drivers to see how they react. If there's one thing that I found the most fun, both as a fan and as a commentator in racing over the years, it's when you throw the drivers into the unfamiliar and make them think on their toes. It certainly gives us probably the most excitement. Looks like we got one of our old drivers back from back in the day, and actually he's just gone
going to P1 here.
Wow. Well then, and not for long though. And Checkered goes back in front of him right away. So he's not going to let himself be pushed around. The number 5 still clearly someone to watch out for here, Brad Speidel, as he comes out and is immediately on the ball. And the interestingly numbered 5S machine, that one is a little bit lost on me. Is that a short track thing that I have not become familiar with yet?
Well, on short tracks, you sometimes you'll have a bunch of guys that show up with the same car number, and they'll add the letter to it to distinguish between the two of them. So that's just kind of a nice little fun thing that he's doing, being short track series and short track racer.
Yeah, that's fitting then. So I guess he's getting that little bit of a nod. So the number 5S up to second place and only 4 1,000ths off of Checkered, with only 8 more 1,000ths back to Brian Dean. In fact, between our top 4, back to Ruben Altice, there is only 5 100ths on the front 2 rows right now here in the warm-up. Clearly, it's proving to be pretty competitive up at the top. Let's see if it's that way throughout the entire field as Checkered gets the last few laps in here, Adam, before we get going into that qualifying.
Yeah, so looking at how these guys are setting these times, I'll tell you that Brad Spittles, that fast lap that he put down, that was on his first lap out of this particular run that he was on. So be looking for him to maybe make a statement in qualifying, maybe try to get up there on the front row, because J.R. Checkered, he wasn't able to set his fast time until his 3rd lap.
It seems that it's whoever's going to get those tires hooked up in qualifying going to make the difference. And right now. The qualifying is just getting kicked off because that warm-up session has ended. Got a fair few cars out here as well, so qualifying should be relatively important.
So we talk about all the practice times and everything while these guys are getting speared up here and ready to go. J.R. Checkered knocked 2/10 off of that right before qualifying ended, down in the 19.5s, and he did it on his second lap.
Okay, so second lap could be the money lap as we see Todd Liston also incorporating some of that brand new fancy chrome that you can put on the cars here in iRacing. He's coming down through turns 1 and 2, and I believe this is his first time lap that he is on right now, but we're not sure that this first one will really produce much amongst most of the drivers.
Yeah, we'll see, and a lot of it might just be about just trying to get the tires warmed up and going as he lays down a 20. Brad Spittle goes a little faster than he did in practice. He just laid down a 19.735. J.R. Checkered starting to roll on his warm-up lap here.
Now, they only get 2 laps to try and qualify, even though they have 5 minutes to do it. Now, Speidel didn't go faster on his second lap. That's interesting. Shinosky did. He gets up to the second row. More drivers coming across. Robbie Robinson, I see, going to finish his. And he gets a 19.959. That's going to put him in 7th. What about J.R. Checkered as he comes around?
Yeah, he's going through 3 and 4. This is his first timed lap. Let's see what we got as Altice sets it, and we'll see if J.R. Checkered's going to break it.
It's a 19.6.
That's
and that
quick.
is the pole. Yeah, that is a whole 10th faster than Ruben Altice, who's just finishing up his second lap. Altice doesn't improve that time by.
But
So
James Lowe does, 19.712. J.R. Checkered coming around to set his second lap. Does not improve, so that 19.61 is the mark for the rest of these guys.
Watching James Lowe come around for that second lap. The 19.712 only goes to a 19.774, so just shy of improving. We're waiting on Mike Holloway to set his first time. We were talking to him a little bit before in that number 31 Rockstar machine. Let's see what he's got, as this is his first time lap. Just hooks the apron, barely coming off of 4 and down over the line. It's a 19.997. That'll be good enough to at least get him on the board, but not quick compared to the rest of the drivers. In fact, he's the last in line right now to have set a time.
Yeah, I'm watching all these guys here in their lines. A lot of them are having problems keeping the car pinned down in 1 and 2 and then trying to get on the hammer as soon as they can. Some of them having just a slight problem. One guy, though, that vastly improves over his practice time, Kenny Kibbe, moves up to 4th on the grid.
And he's still got another lap to go, so he could find himself on the front row potentially. He's about 10th and a quarter off of J.R. Checkered with that 19.734. And it stays where it is. He's literally 3 thousandths off of his first lap. At least he is consistent. And I think that is the last of our drivers to put a qualifying in. We're waiting on Allen, Moore, and Wolfson to qualify. And I do believe they've got time to do so, but they got to get out now.
Yeah, simple fact that they're not out yet and that Donnie Moore also didn't set a practice time, I'm going to guess that they're not. So I'm going to bet that we're safe. We'll want to say, though, that watch that Kenny Kibbe about how consistent he was, Joe, with those 2 times, because no one else was that consistent.
And that could certainly play a factor over the course of a race. With just about a minute to go, that will indeed settle our qualifying. They won't be able to get out and get a time in from here. Knowing that, let's go through our starting order for the day. It is going to be J.R. Checkered who starts this on the pole, picking up where he left off. James Lowe is going to try and challenge him. He was fast in the modified, proved to be fast in this Impala as well. Ruben Altice, though, He was typically a mid-packer in the old SK. Well, he's put it in the second row here today with Kenny Kibbe starting in the 4th position. Then on the inside of row 3, we talked about how quick he was in the warm-up. Brad Speidel in the number 5 starts in 5th appropriately. 6 will be Brian Dean behind him. He was also looking incredibly quick during the warm-up laps. Tim Shanoski starts in 7th today. You've got Joseph Segala starting in P8. Austin Belkey will be in 9th. The outside of row 5 and rounding out the top 10 is going to be Todd Liston.
Yeah, and starting out the second group here in 11th position, Mike Holloway, who we heard from a few minutes ago. Lowell Jewell will be in 12th. In row 7, you'll find Bruce Pearson and Jeffrey Harden. Row 8 is going to belong to Robbie Robinson and Jason Menda. And then row 9 is going to go to Donnie Moore and Mike Allen and then Chris Wolfson. Those 3 did not set a qualifying time and will start at the back of the grid. 19 cars out there today.
Not gonna lie, I do love the look of these cars lining up out here on these short tracks. It really does feel like a bit of old school NASCAR with them doing this. Adam, it's giving me some cool vibes right now.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved short track racing on, these, especially these cars kind of harkens back to the late 90s and early 2000s when, you still had the Grand National Series or, whatever they want to be sponsored by this year out there. The second tier series in NASCAR still running short tracks around that time. Going back to old places like Myrtle Beach where they used to run and all that. That was always neat to see. They'll have 2 qualifying laps being a track here that's under a mile. So, actually lights are off on the pace car. I think actually we'll get the green here this time. I wonder if they change that on me.
Nope. That's typical for the pace laps. The lights are usually off on the pace car.
Don't scare me like that, guys. Come on.
The way I always remember it here, Adam, is if it's less than a mile, you get 2 pace laps here in Iowa.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I didn't see the lights off on the pace car. I thought they still were on. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, maybe iRacing put something in that I didn't know about, which, it's happened before. But, man. But, yeah, and even going back to the old Harkin and, NASCAR days, you got like an old MBNA scheme out there for the Ward Burton used to run, going back to like 96 and 97.
I remember that very well. But the pace car is in. No time for memories. Time to make new ones now. And J.R. Shepard has control of the field as the green flag is out for the first time for the K&N car in the new Grand National Series here in the Bootleg Racing League. He gets up to the front quickly in front of Lowe. Those are the only 2 that are single file, though. Behind them, it is all side by side while everybody else in the field tries to sort it out.
Yeah, J.R. Shepard just with a tremendous launch has started this race, and James Lowe right behind him. That's leaving Ruben Altice to kind of fend off the wolves behind him. That's where things start getting single file. And that's going to be interesting to see if Kenny Kibbe's going to be able to do anything here. It looks like car in the grass. It's Austin Belkey. He's off in the grass. He's trying to keep it down there. And it looks like he'll be okay here.
Yeah, just got a little loose coming off of 2. That cost him a lot of positions with it being so early in a green flag run. Shepard's already setting fastest laps, and though he hasn't left Lowe too far behind, he is pulling away by about half a second. Like you mentioned, it's really Ruben Altice that's kind of plugging everybody up. Got a battle for 6, and that goes in favor of Brian Dean in the number 23. Looks like he's gotten ahead of Kenny Kibbe. Everybody back there really all in a train.
Yeah, and Kenny Kibbe was obviously showed some speed there in practice and qualifying. Started 4th, and really probably should still be up there, except for the fact that he started on the outside and they got hung up on the outside. And that's why he slipped back to 7th, but he's back in line now. We'll see if he's able to move up.
I wonder if the cold tires just didn't work well with the number 11, because Ruben Altice, for a while, though he was under threat, has started to pull away. Oh, and into the wall behind him. Brad Speidel slaps the outside of 4. That's going to give Shanoski an opportunity down into 1 and 2. The 07 gets 4th place. The 23 also streaming by. That's 2 down for the number 5 in just 2 corners.
Yeah, Brad Speidel got bit what I like to call the sticky wall syndrome, where the wall just grabs you and it does not want to let go. And that's going to cost him a few spots. Got another car on grass in the front straightaway. Looks like he's able to get back onto. He's still sliding on. That's Liston.
Yeah, Liston returns to the track just in front of the final pack. That moves him to 15th place. He's still trying to get the dirt off the tires after his trip through the weeds. And he's very, very slow down on that apron. So he's going to go to the very, very back of the 18 cars they're going to start to, that have started today, rather.
Just watching J.R. Shepard now, and some of the lap times, already starting to see some of these lap times very slowly start to fall off. And also starting to see guys, you know, trying to get a handle on things here a little bit too, with a little bit of slip sliding. And I'm not talking about the guys that have been in the grass. I'm talking about just in general, you know, some of the back end stepping out once they step on the gas, little things like that they've got to get under control. But like Mike Holloway was telling us, maybe it just takes about 10 laps for the tires to come in. Well, we're on lap 10.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's looking a little bit more comfortable. We're going to look at Tim Szymanowski, who's still hounding the number 11 of Altice for third position. Takes a little bit of a lower line. The other thing I wonder is we haven't talked yet about the fact that they can't change tires, or what that means for this new tire model. How easy do you have to take it at the start so that you don't burn them up when they're cold? As we watch from on board Szymanowski now.
Well, if these guys were wise, they did a full stint in practice as far as 100 laps. Oh, look at him. Altice in the wall. Wall has him stuck again. He's going to lose at least 2 spots, and now he's stuck on the outside. Speidel now to the inside of him. And it looks like Speidel's going to let him back in line. Maybe. No, Altice is going to slide through 3 and 4.
Yeah, that high line does not look like it is the place to be right now. As Speidel gets by, now Kenny Kibbe is below him into 1 and 2. I think Kibbe might have this one done, but the 11's going to try and fight back. They stay side by side down the backstretch and into 3. Finally, Kibbe's clear, so give the number 14 6th position. But that's looking like a bit of a theme that's building. The outside of turn 4 has already grabbed 2 cars and lost them multiple spots.
Yeah, I mean, and, you know, like I keep calling it sticky wall, but it literally is. Like it grabs you and it slows you down so much. And I've seen lots of wrecks happen because of it, because it slows you down so dramatically. Thankfully, in that case, everybody saw what was happening, was able to get to the more inside part of the track and away from the car that was slowing dramatically. It's almost like jumping on the brakes in a way, Joe.
Down the backstretch, ride. Kibbe still ahead of Altice here. Thankfully, the bleeding stopped there because there was quite a bit of a gap back to Holloway in the 8th position. We're going to watch from Shepard's car here. And this is James Lowe. These two are now 3 seconds ahead of Tim Szymanowski. They are not worried at all. Credit to James Lowe, though. Not many drivers can keep pace with Shepard here, Adam, but he's keeping him honest.
He is, and actually he's been kind of gaining on him ever so slightly the last few laps, at least visually from what it looks like here. It's not much, but he's also not behind by much. I mean, he's only 1 slip up from Shepard away from, you know, being back in contention of this thing, and well, that just doesn't happen very often with J.R. Shepard, though. So he's got to get up there a little closer and put the pressure on. One guy too that I'm noticing that's starting to keep up some speed with these guys is actually Brian Dean, sitting in 4th place. Some of his lap times have been comparable to the 2 leaders here the last little bit. He just doesn't have anywhere to go.
Yeah, right now he's stuck behind Szymanowski. We're still without a caution here with this new car, so even though it's been tricky for a few, it's not been tricky enough to cause someone to wreck out. We've got all 18 starters still here. There's the lap comparison between Dean and Shepard. And you're right. It's very, very close between them, although Shepard is still marginally faster, so he's been pulling away.
Yeah, I would just like to see what he could do with some open track right now, but you know, he's got to get around Szymanowski, and that's going to be tough.
Meanwhile, we've got some action between Liston and Belke. Liston looks like he's just gotten by that number 24. Remember, Todd found himself falling all the way to the very back when he had to catch the car in the infield across the grass. It's been slow going trying to get those spots back. He would love a caution there in that number 87. Before he gets that, he's already rocked up to the back of the 56 to see if he can overtake Robinson.
That's the same way with Belke when he had his slide. Keep in mind, Belke started this thing in 9th position. and just has not been able to regain hardly any ground after his trip through the grass as well.
And we've seen more drivers going backwards than we have going forwards in terms of big gains or big losses. A few have climbed their way up, maybe about 3-4 positions, but other than that, not seeing the sorts of theatrics that we saw when they had the reverse grid, so we'll get that back soon enough. Meanwhile, as we check back in on the battle for third, ever since they've been able to get rid of Ruben Altice, who's fallen back to 7th, Shinosky hasn't been all that phased by those behind him. It was so much closer when we had Ruben leading this train.
Yeah, and of course after Ruben had his little bit of a problem, you know, he's kind of fallen back. Looks like Dean's lap times have kind of fallen off a little bit since we checked in on that. And so collectively as a group, they're back to losing time to the front too. But it still doesn't mean that Dean can't do something if he's able to get up there. But right now, Speidel also starting to get to the back of Dean, and he's bringing Kibbe right with him. So we actually have, looks to be a 4-car battle starting to shape up for third position. It might take a little while before these guys get close enough to really call it a battle, though. But it's going to happen, I think, here before too long.
Oh, looking up at the top, I'm noticing that J.R. Checkered has started to pull away from James Lowe. Wonder if he had had enough of James following him and has started to turn the wick up, or potentially has James maybe lost a little bit of the rubber underneath him.
Yeah, this tire is definitely starting to see guys now. Even here in the last 5 laps, some of these guys have started dropping off a tenth, maybe even 2/10 of a second a lap. As I'm looking at J.R. Checkered, and actually it didn't look, it looked pretty innocent there, riding on board James Lowe, but he was actually kind of almost half sideways there the last time through 1 and 2. So I think he's trying to get a grip on the grip as well. But at the very least, he's still setting consistent lap times.
And I think, you know, I'd be curious what the comparison is between Shinosky and Lowe as well. Because if Shinosky starts to catch up to James, then that could certainly make life interesting as we check out what's going on with the 07 here. And there's our lap comparison. Lowe is still marginally faster, so despite me raising the alarm, it looks like he doesn't need to worry too much. It's not a big difference, but a 3.5 second gap between Lowe and Janowski should keep him safe.
All right, that battle shaping up between Dean, Speidel, and Kibbe. Speidel is pushing hard, and now almost right to the back bumper now of Dean. He falls off a little bit on the exit of 2, but his corner entries right now are being very aggressive to try to get there.
Kibbe's going to like watching this, because if those two start fighting side by side, that'll bring the number 14 into things very quickly, and could also allow him a chance to try and get by as Speidel gets up to the back of the 23. Couldn't quite make the pass, but did get his nose underneath for a moment.
Yeah, and I'd have to say right now, as aggressive, as good of lap times as what Dean was running earlier, his tires have probably fallen off maybe some of the worst. Is now Speidel almost right there, actually almost makes contact with Dean. They're going through 1 and 2 off the center. Hey, you're right. Kibbe's got to be loving this if he's able to take advantage of any kind of slip-up between these two.
It's interesting that it looks like Speidel's entering a lot more shallow than Dean.
Yeah, Speidel is that's that aggressive entry. He's entering super aggressive. And once he started doing that, that's when he started gaining leaps and bounds over top of Dean. Oh, as he takes it a little too aggressively that time, slips up the track just a bit. You know, of course, the bad part about that is you're going to burn off your fronts a little bit faster. But it also is part of the learning experience, I think, with this car, that maybe it might be a way to gain ground. Maybe you can treat him a little bit more aggressively into this deep into a run. So all learning experiences here all the way around.
Certainly seems to be experimenting a bit, and though it put him under pressure from Kibbe, he's got it under control now. It almost looks like, oh wow, it looks like he's using that apron a little bit on the entry too. We heard in the track guide how some drivers can maybe use that to rotate the car. Wonder if that's what he's doing to get the front to really bite.
I think so. That might be a good analysis there, Joe. Just because, I I mean, his lap times really turned up as soon as he started doing that and being a little bit more aggressive.
Oh, but that time he got a bad exit,
Yep.
and he's not going to fight it. As soon as Kibbe gets his car beneath him, he let him go. So there's a little bit of give and take.
Yeah, that was definitely one there where if you fight that, you're going to lose more time than what you would have otherwise. So best just to let him go and maybe let Kibbe have a chance at Dean here over the next few laps.
Still without a caution. We're 38 laps into this thing, so we're past a third of the way through. As we continue to watch Speidel try and stick with Kibbe. So Speidel couldn't get past Dean. What can Kibbe do here?
And by the way, leaders now in lap traffic, so they're having to negotiate that. And before too long, this battle will be starting to get mixed up in lap traffic.
Oh, did we have some action a little bit farther down? I see Jeffrey Harden, Menda, and Robinson close to each other. This is for 12th position. Harden there in the number 44, the blue and yellow machine you see on your screen. Looks like he's struggling a bit, honestly.
Yeah, it's got to be careful. This is a place that if you start trying to push it when you're too loose, it's going to bite you.
Oh, and he's going a little bit high here. He's off the bottom line. That opens the door for Menda. He's going to walk right through the threshold. But can he shut the door? He's got it past the 45s, scored in 12th, and now he's got it done. Another spot being lost for the 44 as Harden's overtaken by Robinson now.
You know, he gained a lot of positions in the first part of this race. Might be a case of maybe burning up some of his tires because, well, you know, he's right back to where he started this thing in 14th position. So did not work out for him. And here in just a couple of laps, J.R. Shepard will be on top of him and he'll go a lap down.
Meanwhile, 4th place, Kibbe did catch up to Dean down to 0.2 of a second. It's gone back up to 3. But he was gaining, and he's using a very similar method to what we saw before from Speidel. He sends it in very shallow and very aggressive on the 23.
Yeah, he is, and this time he's going to get to about his quarter panel. Now he's halfway up the door. He's alongside of him here going down the front straightaway. Dives it in, going back into 1 and 2, and it looks like Dean's going to let him have the position. Same thing. Don't try to fight it. You're going to lose more time than if you do. But he might try to hold off the likes of Speidel here. Speidel slides, actually pulls him right across the nose. They stay off each other, but yeah, there you go. Kibbe moves up to 4th position.
Oh, Dean's going to come back at him down into 1. Nothing there for him, though. That was brave stuff from all around. Speidel back up to 5th. Kibbe up to 4th. They've all lost a lot of ground on Shinosky, who has certainly escaped. He's about 1.7 seconds up and holding down the final podium position.
Yeah,
That's about halfway.
Yeah, I was going to say, these guys really clicking off the laps here. No cautions to do that. You know, if you join us a lot for, you know, say the PRL trucks, you know, we got an hour limit on that race. We got an hour limit here. And at this rate, we're in no danger of getting anywhere near that hour limit this afternoon. As these guys, very clean race here so far.
Yeah, very impressive start to the K&N's history here in the Bootleg Series. So we watch more of the drivers deal with lap traffic. Wolfson being...
Wolfson's in the wall right in front of Dean. Dean's able to see it happening and misses him.
Yeah, that was Speidel and Kibbe that was trying to sneak through there. Let's take a look at Wolfson. What exactly happened?
It's exactly the same thing that we saw earlier with Speidel and some of the others. He's going to get there, get a little bit too close to that wall. It was on a... I believe it was coming up here as he goes into 1 and 2, coming out of 2. He'll grab the wall, and it's Dean, though, that sees it happening and has to yank the car down just a touch. He can't run all the way up to him. Misses him, but see how much time that costs by Wolfson, because it's a lot like just getting on the brakes in the middle of the straightaway.
Yeah, Wolfson thankfully kept it off to the right side so that he doesn't weave right back into him. Down to 13 cars on the lead lap. Shepard is gobbling him up at this point. He's pulled his lead out to about 2.5 seconds over James Lowe. hasn't really been bothered by the 99 ever since the drop of the green, and has been handling the traffic fairly well. Sometimes that can be the deal breaker with a lot of leaders as they find themselves slowed up trying to overtake it. But Adam, I don't think the 98 is having any such problems.
He's not so far, and he's catching the lap traffic in much more favorable position than what James Lowe has. I mean, because really James Lowe, he's shown that he can be almost as fast as what J.R. Checkered has been. It's just been, the advantageous part of it.
So you take a look from the onboard of Lowe. You can still see Checkered up there, but he's a pretty distant speck at this point. We got a little bit of close racing in the middle of the pack, and in fact, I think Checkered will be approaching them in the near future if we stay green like this. Bruce Pearson and Mike Holloway very, very close together as well, along with Joe Segala, trying to see if he can maybe get a bit of this. They've come up to lap Wolfson. Number 7 is going to try and stay high. This time he handles the marbles a little bit better.
Both these guys, Holloway and Pearson, both have Mission 22 on the car. Same with Pearson, of course. Looks like it's his primary sponsor there. And Mission 22, a great cause. Check them out. I've done some things with them with our riding shotgun team in the majors, and it's always a good cause to help support some of our veterans, and especially support them in a way for emotional reasons and all that, because we got to end the cause of veteran suicide, and that's what Mission 22's mission is.
Absolutely, yeah. That has got to be one of the hardest things of coming back out of service. So we now ride on board with Joseph Segala now, looking up ahead at the pink rear bumper of Bruce Pearson. Holloway just in front of them. They're not too far behind Ruben Altice in 7th spot, the number 11. Ever since he lost that 3rd place, has fallen well away from the top 6, but he hasn't lost any spots since. Holloway obviously trying to change that. Now up to lap 58, still without a caution this whole race. I almost say, usually we think of those cautions.
Jason Mendez off the track, though.
Ooh, what happened
Whoa,
here?
Well, he actually lost it all the way back, coming out of 2. Steps out on him. See, we got it here. Yeah, GSRC replay machine. Director Sean Ambrose found it here. He's going to lose it out of 2. And then the journey begins. He ends up all the way down to the inside. He's trying to find a good place to maybe try to come back up on track, and still kind of meandering his way around. Eventually, by the start-finish line, he's back underway. Plenty of dirt on the tires, though, that he's still trying to work through.
You needed a wizard with a gray beard and a staff to get him back on track there. But he returns at 17th position.
It did not bring out a caution. It did not bring out a caution.
Exactly, yeah. In 7th place.
Kibbe has really gotten to Shinosky. We got a battle for a 3rd here, guys.
Oh, wow. When did this happen?
Kibbe was falling way back.
Did Shinosky have some issues maybe out there? I'm checking his lap times.
And Kibbe, I think, just got super aggressive for over a few laps. And while we were watching that adventure, he got right back up to the rear bumper. I just think that Kibbe, it's turned to be fast here.
Wonder if he was saving his stuff a little bit too, and he actually gets to the inside here through 1 and 2. And the 07 has no way to defend. There's nothing left on that car. As Kenny Kibbe now gets onto the podium, who else can he chase down with this sort of speed? And I was about to say, before we had to go to the action with Menda, I almost wonder if these races without the cautions, those long runs, are harder than the caution fests here, Adam, because there is so much tire management.
Yeah, I mean, these guys really have to figure out. We're seeing these, the good guys that are getting really fast are coming in waves. And it's all part of the learning experience. I keep harping on the learning experience, but that's exactly what it is with the new car for this series and these guys figuring it out. You're seeing it here today about who's managing stuff better in the long term, who maybe did some full race length practice runs with the tires to kind of have an idea. But of course, you introduce lap traffic in, so that times just all goes away. J.R. Checkered, though, he's extended extended that lead by 4 seconds. So you have to go in there almost 6 seconds back to Kenny Kibney and Tim Shanoski. So those guys running away.
Ooh, meanwhile, the battle we were watching earlier in the mid-pack between Pearson and Holloway is getting a lot closer. And in fact, they've reeled in Ruben Altice a little bit more too. You can visibly see that that gap has come down as that blue and pink car continues to get tucked up under the rear spoiler of Mike Holloway. It almost looks like, though, he's a little bit quicker in the corners. Oh, Holloway now coming up to the number 11. And that was nearly able to get the nose inside of Altice.
Yeah, Holloway was 0.2 faster that last time by than what Altice was. So these guys have just been gaining on Altice by leaps and bounds. And if Holloway can just simply get a look, I think he'll have that position pretty easy. But you got to get that look.
Well,
and as we saw earlier in this race, Ruben Altice, not the easiest guy to pass.
And the 31, because we're riding on board with Pearson right now, the 31 is also a little bit under threat because Pearson keeps really closing in as they come down to the apexes. Watch it right here. Boy, he sends it in deep.
Now, J.R. Shepard now almost to the back end of Pearson. And if I'm J.R., I mean, he's watching these guys. He knows that they're fighting for position right now. Might try to take it a little bit easier getting around these guys than what I have been, because I got almost a 4.5 second lead over top of James Lowe. I've got time to let these guys kind of sort themselves out before I really attack.
Now he's already right up underneath Pearson. See what Shepard does here. Let's see what these three do. The 31 almost putting the chrome horn to Ruben Altice. Now he's getting that close.
And now they see that big Sunoco sign behind them. They know J.R. Shepard's there. They don't want to go a lap down. You just don't. I mean, so they're trying. They're doing their best right now to try to stay up there, maybe hoping for a caution. But at the same time, though, he is the leader. They'll give him the respect he wants. But J.R. Shepard also very aware that these guys are fighting hard themselves.
Oh yeah, the 98 or 96 tried to stay with him, but has to give it up. I almost wonder, though, maybe for Bruce, the theory needs to go that he gets up underneath the 98, watches what he does, and then whenever he creates a hole, follow him through, get the positions that way.
Yeah, he got to stay on his rear bumper to do that, though. And so far, he hasn't been able to. So that's tough. J.R. Shepard is just lightning quick.
Yeah, I thought he'd be able to stay a little bit closer to the back of him here, and you're right. He's struggling now that he's been overtaken. Here comes to the inside of Holloway, J.R. Shepard. He's going to put another lap down car into the mix. So only 7 cars now. And look at that. Down to the inside. Pearson does try and follow him through. 31's going to try and keep him back, but he's on the outside line, which has not looked good at all this whole race long. Indeed, the 96 captures P8.
Joe Peak's crystal ball working better than Discord's. Asked the 8-ball, the magic 8-ball something, and it turned out it was right.
So, up to 8th place. Can he do the same once Altice gets lapped here? He's a lot farther back this time. And already Altice is getting lapped, and he's not going to fight it.
He did the smart thing. He immediately let J.R. Shepard go on entry, and as soon as he could, cut down right behind him, thinking that Pearson might try to sneak that one in, and so staved off any attempt at Pearson pulling a repeat there.
Already 3/4 of the way through this race. All has been green flag racing. Now, Shepard has been slowed up a little bit by that battle. Remember, we talked about how it was over 4 seconds. It's down to 3.5, but...
Yeah, and that's fine.
Exactly.
And let that be a lesson. You got a lot of iRacers. You got a lot of new iRacers over the holidays. Maybe you found the broadcast here tonight. When you're leading a race and you have that big of a lead, you don't just have to charge right through the pack like that. You can take your time. It's okay to lose a second or two when you have that much lead. Just like what J.R. Shepard did. He was patient. Everybody got through it okay. And look, the battle resumes for that position. He didn't affect that battle hardly at all. They're still just as close as they were before, although Pearson and Holloway swap places.
Now, that's really the only change of positions in that battle that was able to happen with the lapping cars. They are going to have more, though. Where is James Lowe? There he is. Now he's coming up. He's got a few cars before he gets to them. He'll need to get by Robinson and Segala. So we now hop on board with James Lowe. Gives you an idea of how much 3.5 seconds mean, which is now 3.9. So it's almost already up to 4 seconds here. You can't even see J.R. Shepard up in front of him at this point.
And by the way, we were watching the battle earlier between Kibbe and Shinosky. How fast that happened, how quick Kibbe caught Shinosky. Well, Kibbe got around him. That gap's already up over 4 seconds. So Kibbe doing his best to try to catch now Jason Lowe, and he's got another 4 seconds to get there, which with the right things are going, who knows? I mean, if Lowe starts having problems with lap traffic, Kibbe could be right up there for second with how fast things have changed here today.
I'll be honest, I'm looking, even before we bring any sort of graphic up here, I'm looking at the lap times between Kibbe and Lowe. Kibbe is consistently 0.2 of a second quicker. So, yeah, he could indeed run him down.
You know, about 20 laps left now, a little less than 20. You do the math, well, you could be right there in the last lap or two of this thing if that difference keeps popping up the way it is.
There you go, right there. Kibbe is got the rubber underneath him. He's trying to use it up. You don't need it after this race, even though you got to save it at least for the checkered flag. You can't do anything with it after that, so might as well burn it up come the end. And 15 laps to go at this point. It's going to be difficult, but again, this lap traffic could play a factor. Lowe already got by Robinson. He's still working his way up to Holloway. And you know what? I think Segala got passed by Robinson when we weren't looking. That was a swap for 10th position. Excuse me, Robinson got by Segala. Segala was the one in front of him before. Speaking of positions and importance in the mid-pack, remember, they're going to swap the top 8. Bruce Pearson right now holds the pole position for the next round if things stay put.
I don't think there's not some bragging rights there. I mean, that gave you a good leap forward going into the next race, but granted, he still wants to get that 7th position. It would still put him on the front row next week. So, hey, you know, if I'm Ruben Altice, I don't feel safe, but Bruce Pearson, he's all over the back. Oh, actually, he is in the back of him. A little bit of a touch there. Bruce Pearson backs off.
His paint's all over the back of him now. The number 11 keeps the spot.
That teal blue would really show up well on that black. Just saying.
They're going to try and go by Chris Wolfson. Laps are starting to run down. Opportunities are going to disappear here. He did a good job keeping from turning him around.
Ooh, and now who's stuck behind these guys? That would be James Lowe, who just cannot afford like what J.R. Shepard could and take his time. He's got to get through these guys, or Kenny Kibbe's going to accelerate his run to the front. Kenny Kibbe already, it looks like about 2 seconds, getting close to almost 2 seconds behind him here, I think. Just, rough estimate.
Yeah, down to 2 seconds for sure as they come to 10 laps to go at this point. James Lowe is able to get by Holloway. Next on his list is going to be Pearson. I almost think, really, if anything, all Lowe needs to do is keep one car between himself and Kibbe at this point, and that'll keep him safe.
Well, I mean, if he can get through this pack, well, that also means that Kibbe's got to get through that same pack, but they're not being easy. Kibbe now going to get around Chris Wolfson, who's just going to let him have the position. He's multiple laps down here at this point, and that's going to leave only that one car between them. Although James Lowe now has a look underneath Bruce Pearson, and we'll see if Mike Holloway is able to get that position back the same way that Bruce Pearson got that position initially, and he's going to make a dive for it. Multiple things going on in this little pack right here. I love it.
Definitely complicates things, and drivers got to be aware of every situation that's happening, because you have to assess all those factors and make the right decisions in those split moments. Down to 7 laps to go now. Shepard, by the way, who we saw on screen briefly, still 5.5 seconds. He's been leading this whole race and has been unfazed.
Yeah, he got a great hole shot right at the green flag, took off, and James Lowe gave him, he was back there right behind him for a while, but as the tires fell off, J.R. Shepard didn't. and it just kept going.
Sorry, on screen, Lowe got by Altice, and I think Pearson's going to try and capitalize on that. He did get underneath him, but he wasn't able to gun it off the corner in quite the same fashion.
Now, Kibby's got to go for it. If he wants second place, he's got to get around these guys and has to do it, because we're on lap 95 now. There's no more time to waste, and now that James Lowe, he still has one car in front of him, that being Mike Allen, who Mike Allen's probably going to move out of the way, also being multiple laps down now.
Now we're down to 5 cars left on the lead lap at this point. It is all kinds of mixed up out there. Brad Speidel is our last driver ahead of J.R. Shepard. That might not last long.
Yeah, he's just ahead of him, I think, here.
Are we right on board with our leader with 3 to go now? He's still got to get past Pearson, and he is going to get to the inside. Ooh, almost thought he was going to slide into the side of him there.
He's just going to run out of time. There's not going to be enough time. We're coming to lap 99 here.
And J.R. Shepard, with 2 to go now, is going to lap yet another car. We're down to 4 cars on the lead lap. Boy, you mentioned old school NASCAR before. This really is getting to be old school NASCAR.
It is. Kibby is now around that pack. There is nobody between him and James Lowe. I just think he's going to run out of time.
White flag is out. The first race in the K&N car for the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series has J.R. Shepard taking the pole and also taking the checkered flag, winning on his first time out in this car. Lowe a distant second, 6.5 seconds behind, but still he's on the podium, and Kenny Kibbe, who chased him down to within a second, just didn't have enough underneath him, but still gets third. Last car on the lead lap is going to be Tim Shanoski. Altice did manage to finish ahead of Pearson, who was ahead of Holloway. So with that brings us to a cautionless race and a break here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. We're going to come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Stick around, because on screen you'll see all the upcoming races here on GSRC. Welcome back to Stafford Motor Speedway. Round 1 of the new season for the Bootleg Racing League Grand National Series presented by the Cruise Shop was won by J.R. Checkered, and there were no cautions in this 100-lap race. That is a good sign of things to come here for this series. James Lowe managed to finish in second with Kenny Kibbe in third. Not necessarily as good of a sign, but the last driver on the lead lap was in fourth place, Tim Shinoski back there. And then Brad Speidel comes back to the Bootleg Racing League and manages a top 5. Not a bad showing for him. Brian Dean finishes 6th today with Ruben Altice in 7th. Ruben really spent most of the race looking in his mirrors. Bruce Pearson was the one filling it through a lot of that. He finished 8th today. Mike Holloway with a 9th, and Joe Segala rounds out your top 10.
Yeah, so 11th position could go to Robbie Robinson. I don't think we really talked much about Robbie Robinson, hardly at all during that 100-lap race. It's a very quiet race for him, which is not always a bad thing. Austin Belke is going to come home in 12th, recovering after that slide through the infield earlier. Jeffrey Harden in 13th, Lowell Jewell in 14th. Todd Liston will come home 15th, also had that slide, and of course the adventure that we covered from Jason Linda, who comes home in 16th. 17th will be Mike Allen. Chris Wolfson will be in 18th position. Donnie Moore did not take the green flag.
We've got our winner ready to talk to us. J.R. Checkered joins us here in the booth. J.R., congratulations on kicking things off with a victory. This new car also has a new tire, but it produced a fully green flag race. What was it like trying to manage those things for 100 laps nonstop?
Yeah, you're right. It's definitely a managed thing. Yeah, these tires they hold up pretty good for about 10 laps, and then they slowly start to go off. And I think at the end we were running about a second off of what our fastest laps were. So yeah, the front really starts to push, especially at the apex of the corner, and as you go to get back on the throttle, it just wants to burn the tires off. So it's a lot of throttle management and a lot of on and off the brake, on and off the throttle, just trying to keep the car underneath you.
Now, it seemed like your race was more defined less by the racing with the other cars and more by just trying to deal with the lap traffic. You put everybody except for 4 cars, well, 3 other than you, a lap down. I mean, tell us a little bit having to work with that, because you did come across a few battles along your way.
Yeah, I did. I hate getting involved in those battles because I know they're guys that are running their race, and they have a good thing going on. And one of those battles was for that 8th spot that puts you on the pole for next week. So I hated getting involved in it, but I saw that I was losing time to James, and I knew that James and Kenny were doing a decent job trying to save their tires, at least from what I could see. So I knew if I lost too much time, they were going to be able to close that gap pretty quick. So yeah, it was not something I like to do, but I knew if I could get by those guys, I could manage the end of the race a little bit better.
Well, it looked a little bit easier since you got to start from the pole this time, but you're going to be starting from 8th next week. How are you anticipating things going to be having to work your way through the field while also managing those tires?
Yeah, that's going to be the trick. So you hope you get a good start at the initial start of the race, and things sort out so you can kind of conserve your tires, but run at your own pace. Tonight, because we started up front, because I had James right there, he was turning some really fast laps at the beginning, so I ran a little bit harder than I wanted to, and I actually burned my tires off a little bit more than what it sounded like Kenny did after talking with him after the race. So I knew that he was there, and I knew I had to keep a gap. So I ran hard pretty much the entire race, and it's not something that you want to do. Like I said, next week it'll be a different deal, and try to save those tires a little bit better, have a better car at the end.
Well, we'll watch out for that and see how you fare. Again, congratulations. Anybody you'd like to thank?
Yeah, I think Lowell Jewell and the Bootleg Racing League for putting this on. It was a hard decision I know for him to switch to the Grand National car for the broadcast race, but it looks like we got a great group of guys in here. The race went green flag, and I honestly can't remember the last time we had a broadcast race that went green flag, so that was pretty awesome. Congratulations to James and Kenny for their top 3 runs, and of course to the cruise shop for sponsoring us. Yeah, pretty good night.
Great stuff there from the number 98, J.R. Shepard, our winner here for the first round of the Grand National car. Up next, Adam has caught up with James Lowe, who did keep JR honest, but couldn't quite keep the same pace.
Yeah, kept him honest here for about the first half of the race. James setting some pretty good lap times there in that Coast Guard machine, but fortunately, kind of let the tires burn off there at the end, I'm guessing.
Yeah, between that and trying to get around the lap cars and things, it kind of went away from us there. But, all in all, 100 lap race, no cautions, can't complain too much.
Now I've got to ask you, you had Kenny Kibbe start to catch you there at the end. Were you starting to get a little worried? Were you watching that time differential between the two of you?
Yeah, I don't want to interfere with the guys' battles that were coming up the lap too much, so I was trying to take it easy there, and it let them catch up a bunch, but I knew we'd have enough as long as we didn't, wreck it or, spin it too bad. We'd be good.
Well, of course, new car in this new season. What did you think of the overall tire package, right from the start of the race to the end of the race? Do you think it's going to make for more interesting racing this season?
Yeah, they're a handful. I was loose, so I banged it off the wall a couple times, tried to tighten it up, and then the last time I did it was too much, so I was a little bit tight and then loose off. But I was actually quite surprised that we won 100 laps with no cautions, because these cars are hard to handle.
Well, that's a short track racer thing if I've ever heard it. I'm going to bang it off the wall just to tighten it up a little bit. Hey, James, appreciate you stopping by, buddy, and hopefully we talk to you next week at Five Flags.
Appreciate it, guys.
That was second place finisher James Lowe talking to us. And finally, we've got Kenny Kibbe here in the booth. Kenny with a podium, but just coming up short to go one better. Kenny, it looks like you were trying to make James sweat, but from what that interview sounded like, he had it under control. What was it like from your perspective?
Well, at the end there, I tried through the whole race to really save my tires, and it paid off in a way. And we were running them down so quickly, but then we got up to this huge gaggle of traffic, and they were lapped down, but they still had something to race for because they're fighting for that top 8 spot to get pole next week. So they're all racing hard, and I'm getting impatient. I'm trying to get past them in order to get to James, and I think that's what gave James confidence that he was going to stay ahead of me, was because I just couldn't get through the traffic quick enough to get to him.
Now, in a race that goes green for 100 laps, to manage the tires and to save them from so early, honestly takes a little bit of foresight. At what point did you start to think to yourself, this could go green the whole way?
I mean, when we really got spread out past the halfway marker, probably around lap 75 really is when things were really spread out. And it gets to a point where it's just got to be go time. Whether I think there might be a caution or not, I need to start going and trying to make up as much time as I can. I knew I wasn't going to reach JR because he had built up such a lead, but once I could actually see James, because for a while I couldn't, once I could actually see James in my windshield, I thought I should at least go for second.
And you tried to do that to the best of your ability. But next week, you're going to be starting in the mid-pack or thereabouts, obviously, with the regrid at Five Flags. How are you expecting this car to handle at that place with the fairly steep banking there?
Yeah, I mean, Five Flags is really known for being a really fast track. But like coming off of turn 4 is going to be really tricky. It's a really weirdly shaped corner, and again, it's going to be the same kind of strategy for me, at least, is just taking it easy, saving those tires, and have something for the end. And that might involve me letting some guys go at the beginning, and I'll have to run them back down and pass them all over again.
Well, that'll at least give us some excitement. Anybody you want to thank before we let you go?
Yeah, everybody at the Bootleg Racing League, everybody tonight who was racing did a phenomenal job keeping these cars going the right direction. And everybody that likes to watch my live streams, and you guys for doing these broadcasts. I hope you had fun covering these different cars tonight. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys next week.
Hopefully we will. That was Kenny Kibbe finishing third tonight. It's the last of our interviews, so it brings us to the thank yous now that we close up shop for round 1 of the Grand National Series. That includes our sponsor, as always. You can find out more about the Cruise Shop either through their phone number, that is 260-755-6125, or by just simply going to their website, thecruiseshopfw.com. Big thank you to the Bootleg Racing League for bringing us back for another season of coverage. But also, a thank you goes to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcasts that are listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. And thanks to the team today, Adam, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media. Our Twitter is at GSR Channel, Facebook is Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram is GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support the channel, check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storeenvy.com. We've got a link in the description below. And make sure and subscribe to GSRC when you get the opportunity. Next race, as we mentioned, it's going to be at Five Flags down in Florida. That'll be Saturday, January 11th at 8:50 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.